Something that happens playing with cloud code is you just start building a bunch of stuff and maybe some of the stuff doesn't get to the finish line. So then the question becomes like, what do you build? I realized that even the videos with 500 views would make a sale. And in our case, maybe $2,000 or $3,000 sale, it was worth it for me to make a 15-minute video explaining the product.
If there's someone starting a company or currently that has a software company, what would you recommend they focus on so that they don't get their food eaten by Claude?
Always great to connect with you, bro.
For people who don't know Derik, he's working on a couple of new things, and I know you always have like a couple of interesting things going on.
Yeah, I've been building software for the last 10 years approximately, and previously to that I was in online publishing, and even before that I was in the scrap metal space, which kind of becoming relevant now. But for the last 10 years, just focused on software. My last business was actually an e-commerce outdoor distribution business. One of the reasons why I wanted to sell that business was to focus my time exclusively on AI, mainly cloud code. A few other products, but mainly cloud code because the functionality is just advancing so fast. So it really pays dividends to hone in on one platform.
Like after you sold your last company, I guess like what was the aha moment for you that you felt this was going to be big?
After selling the previous company, we had another software product that was live on the App Store that we were commercializing. That product didn't work out in the end. One reason because of the flood of mobile apps that were coming on the market. So that was the friction for me, where last year around the same time or a little bit earlier, building products myself had enough friction that I really wanted to work with engineers. So then the question becomes like, what do you build? What can you, like, you can build anything. What do you build? I find that something that happens playing with cloud code is you just start building a bunch of stuff and maybe some of the stuff doesn't get to the finish line. Getting clear on why you want to build certain things, definitely super important for me so I don't get too distracted.
Yeah, I met this guy. I'm not going to say who he is, but he's literally a slot machine. He's got this personal website, and then on the personal website, he's got 50 different projects. In the last year, he's launched a project a week. And I know he's not maintaining any of them. Yeah. And then he's just putting out like 500 pieces of content a month, and his content is the same. It's like he has no engagement on the content. Like he's putting out 500 pieces of content across TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and across multiple accounts. It's insane. And I know that he's making some money, but it's kind of insane. It's nuts.
You know, you have to make something that people want and something that people trust. Any product that becomes very successful, you want to have technical people on your team.
We talk about this a lot, like it's just distribution. You've thought about this in the last couple companies that you built, how important that is. But what do you think about distribution now?
So the rules of distribution still apply. And one way that I like to think about it, there's a cost of every distribution model. So that means the monetization has to match the distribution model. So if you're doing, for example, creating TikTok videos or short form videos to promote their mobile apps that are more consumer focused and like, you know, hacks of cool hooks to promote the product, like sort of like a self-help thing or travel buddy apps. It's all super valid products.
Oh, MyFitnessPal.
It's a really nice model, but it follows the cheapest form of clicks. So if you can create some form of viral content, and now that you can create this content at scale, you can have pretty cheap clicks. So the monetization, for example, for these consumer apps, they have really low retention. So a lot of people call them MRR, right? They'll say, oh, yeah, I do $20,000 a month MRR on my consumer app. If in B2B sales, for example, well, if you're going to do an SDR, an account executive, and so do a manual outreach, or now there's a ton of tools and you can have agent SDRs and all that, it kind of compresses the cost of doing it. But still, if your product is less than $10,000 a year, it's challenging because the cost of doing that strategy is just going to creep up towards the price of your product. So I think if you have a good distribution, but it doesn't match the price of your product, if you want to do cold emailing, but you have a $2,000 offer, at the end, you might get traction early on, but it's not going to work long term. Same with e-commerce. In the e-commerce business we had was mainly SEO. If you sell a $50 product, it's really hard to run meta ads, for example. So as another channel, before you build anything, talk to real people, see if they like your stuff.
So I always thought what you did with the e-com company was really smart, like from the SEO perspective, like just making videos. And I think you had a video for every SKU that you sold.
I realized that even the videos with 500 views would make a sale. And in our case, maybe $2,000 or $3,000 sale, it was worth it for me to make a 15-minute video explaining the product. And then the product is quite durable. It's not a product that changes over time that much. So now I'm looking at the channel and it's still performed really well, being seen as a trusted advisor to solve problems. Maybe your product does this much early on, but eventually you want to do this much to maybe increase your pricing strategy and get better distribution. So it's back to people trust you solving their problems.
Now you're thinking about like what to work on next, right? A little bit. And I know you've been helping companies implement AI. So tell me more about that.
The rapid pace of AI and seeing how it's changing. So for example, I did a canoe map for the canoe community. We blessed here in the region to have the world-class canoe spots, canoe rivers, and the information's a little bit scattered. So made like a really high def map of all the spots with the rapids and all of the the points of interest of all the camping spots and so on and so on. Create automation. So automation before Opus 4.5 was really like N8N, make.com, Zapier, that's automation. They add an LLM layer on it if there's a small LLM step. Now in 2026 with 4.6, you can just give the trigger to Cloud Code, and they just released yesterday their webhook integration. I haven't tested it yet, so the risk is on you guys. But I'm about to test it. So it will run the entire workflow for you, and you don't have to draw or connect multiple things and define the steps. So it's just going to define its own steps. I think taken away a little bit from the deterministic automation tools, and then you can build all your own custom tooling for your business too. So custom reports and customer onboarding workflows, your own accounting even. So any cash flow tools you need, you can do so much. And it's a little bit scary because as a software builder, you have to look at building a product differently. If you're using Opus 4.6 with a million token context, well, now just in the last 2 weeks with the volume ramp up of Claude, a lot of people are reporting decreased quality of output because they're kind of throttling it. So if you build a workflow, it's working really well. If it's not a very complicated workflow, you're not going to have many issues. But it's a heavy context workflow, you will have issues, but there's ways to fix it. Like if you do the workflow for this email, for example, that one wouldn't even cost any tokens because you could use your Claude subscription for it. So it would cost maybe $100 or $200 a month for your Claude subscription. Right. So that's most of the workflows that I've seen. It's 100x return on investment.
It's funny because I'd say like most of the tools are just like not sexy for a lot of these businesses, just like very specific, helping with something that's so unique and specific to that business. And then it gives them whatever, like 50% more output. They're able to get out 20% more quotes, but that's huge for them, right? It's hard. I feel like it's really hard to identify those unless you really understand the business. So do you think it's ever going to be scalable?
Well, I think the tools are getting so good that people will do it themselves. I think about productizing all the time. Like that's my number one concern is I love products. So, but it's becoming so hard every week, every few days, there's a new Claude Code feature. I'm sure it's similar for Codex. Claude released scheduled cloud tasks. That was a really cool feature because you could they'll duplicate the repo, run the task in the cloud with the permissions that you give in that you give Claude. So all your API keys. And it's secure. So all the workflows that are cron jobs, so now every hour is the minimum. Run a job every hour. Hey, check my inventory level based on all these quotes, or check my outdoor distribution business. We had a lot of SKUs, so you can do SKU projections. You can do so many cool things. SKU projection and cash flow management was kind of the main thing because building an inventory is expensive on that side. So that's an example of a scheduled cloud task that would work really well for that business. And then 2 days ago, they renamed that. It used to be called scheduled task, and now they call it routines because now there's API triggers and webhooks that you can integrate to trigger these tasks. And like last week, when I did this for a customer, we had to set up a webhook platform that would trigger the event on GitHub. We had to use the Claude API cost, right? So that's a difference too. If you're using you're triggering, if it's not Claude that's triggering the cloud task, you're using API cost, which is about 10 times the price as a normal subscription, because the subscription you're getting subsidized value. So $200 subscription, you get, some people say up to $2,000. I don't know. I haven't measured it exactly, but so there's a bias, at least for me, to try and run all the automations inside my subscription. That trigger can be done from Claude. So it's a Claude action, it's a Claude subscription action, part of your plan. So you don't have to pay additional for API costs. So now you can run like a series of webhooks, series of cron jobs that create these complex reports from pulling data from 6 different tools. Every day, if you want, you can create amazing content. You know, you talked about the slop content.
So a lot of the companies you work with are, if you were to advise a software founder, either someone starting a company or currently that has a software company, what would you recommend they focus on so that they don't get their food eaten by Claude?
Yeah, good question. That's the ultimate question, I think. So back to context. Okay, so if you have an LLM doing all these tasks and you have a million token context, if you're doing a lot of things, the context will often be polluted by all the other things that you're doing because it's capturing project context. So if you're doing 20 things in your business, in your repo, and you have a lot of different objectives, so the context will start being, I'd say, kind of polluted by all the other stuff, and it's going to lose precision and lose the quality of the output. If you focused on a unique vertical problem, your context is always going to be better optimized than a general solution. For example, for the CNC shop, the context might be all sourcing all of the metal. So all of that is let's say the supply context, which is already huge. Then you have the quotes context, milling time on different machines, which machine are you going to take for which part, trying to optimize the workflow in the shop. That's another big part of the context. So that's starting to become a data moat a little bit, I feel. I think that deeper integrations is one, data moats is one, and deep expertise is probably the other, just because of how it affects the context.
I guess if you have many different data sources, like if you're integrating many APIs, many data sources, you're collecting interesting, unique information.
Like the thing that people are building now with AI is like invoicing solution, which was our last software. So it's almost faster to go into Cloud Code and say, hey, can you make a really nice invoice to send to this customer? And here's my Stripe key, by the way. Don't put it in the context window, but it's easy to set up to send the invoice and a payment link. So now you don't need Stripe invoicing. You don't need a third-party invoicing tool. You can just do it.
Any business ideas that you have that you want to give away for free?
The quality loop is the most important for entrepreneurs. So if let's say we're in a digital where we're trying to provide a mobile app. If you're part of that loop, not only that you're interested in the outcome of the app, you're interested in, you're not just trying to make money because then you just like make something, put it out there, it doesn't do anything. But if you're really like crafting and you want it to be really high quality, excited to make it better, I think there's room to make really cool stuff, really good quality stuff. That's where the differentiator is.
Yeah, interesting. It's funny, like Postbeam now, I feel like our best features have been our last features because we're starting to understand the problems a lot more deeply. Early on, we built a bunch of features that I think were table stakes, kind of cool, but it actually ended up being like some of the easiest to ship features that we just thought were kind of cool. One example is like having a stacked bar chart to show you all of your team's analytics, like it combined to show you, hey, this is what as a team you get in terms of impressions and people reach through your content, like literally a one-shot, simple feature, right? But I think, maybe that one thing is not proprietary, but you stack on all of these like mini cool, unique features from understanding the problem by being an expert in the space that probably end up making your moat, like you said.
Yeah, we're not going to vibe code everything. For some of these workflows, they're very specific for my clients. So there is no solution. There is no paid solution to do it. So now that you have this crazy automation tool, you can do it. But the automation tools will become much better. And sometimes it's just better to buy a really nice tool that fits your needs. So I think for somebody that really, really cares about their team impressions on LinkedIn, then that's absolutely a must-have to have that feature.
Cool. We'll cut it here. Where can people follow you? Just like keep in or get in touch.
I'm on LinkedIn, Derik Lawlis on LinkedIn. That's the best part.
Cool.
Best place to connect. Love to chat. Anybody that has, always want to learn and help people. So want to connect. Let's go.
Cool. Thanks, Derik. Thanks, man. I'll see you later.
Thanks,
All
Cassie.
right.
I appreciate you, Ron.